Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and do you want to easily change the front grille on your BMW M3? I'll show you how to do it. All right, y'all, so let's talk about this project a little bit before we do it and why you might want to do this. Now, you know, the new BMW M3s and M4s have a really radical redesign of the front end and a redesign of the kidney grills, and there are a lot of ways to change them. It's pretty heavily criticized in the new design change. You either love it or you hate it, and there's a lot of awesome ways you can either update or change the look to better suit your style. Now, the Kies Motorsports carbon fiber front kidney grills are a fantastic way of doing that. They change the look pretty radically and much more along the lines that you see with the BMW CS or CSL. This is really not that hard of an install, and I'll walk you through the whole process. Now, if you can't tell already, this gorgeous G80 behind me is already up in the air. Now, I'm always going to say this every time your car is in the air, so if you've seen a lot of my videos, forgive me for hearing this yet again. But you can do this work with jacks and jack stands to get underneath the nose of your car very easily, or you can use quick jacks like I have, which I highly recommend, by the way. But anytime your car's in the air, be very, very careful. Make sure you're on a level surface. Make sure you're using a jack and jack stands if that's all you have. Never trust your life to a 50-cent part. Please don't do it. I've seen jacks fail. Your car will come down. Best case scenario, your car might be damaged. Worst case scenario, you're under your car. Okay, so please be careful. So I already have the car lifted with my quick jacks. If you want to check out how that works, make sure to check out my quick jack video. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop the hood. We're going to pull some rivets. We're going to pull some plates, and then we're going to pull some screws all the way around to take our front bumper cover off completely. But let's start underneath the hood. All right, let's get going. All right, guys, so you want to start under the hood to start off with. There's this front seal. You're just going to pull this up and out of the way. You don't necessarily have to pull it off the ends, which makes it a little bit easier to put on in a second. And then there's a series of plastic rivets across the front here that are covering some screws that we're going to have to take out. So go ahead and pull out all of these plastic rivets. If you've never done that before, plastic trim tool works really well. You just kind of work your way under the center pin and pull up. If the pin comes out, that's okay. You just get underneath the body of the rivet and pull it out. Make sure not to lose the pin. I usually just put them back in here and put these somewhere safe. But go ahead and pull all of these off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way across. Pull off this plastic piece, and then we'll have the screws underneath that we'll get to last. After this, we're going to go to the wheel well, but start here first. All right, y'all, so now that that front top cover piece is off, we can start taking a look at the wheel wells. So you're gonna wanna turn your tires. You could potentially take your wheels off entirely, but I mean, if you don't need to do it, why add that extra step? Once your car's up in the air, you can turn your wheels so you can expose these 10mm screws right here. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. That's all you need to take off. You don't have to take off the whole fender lining, because all you're going to do is take these out so you can pull the fender lining out, because there's some connections and sensors and your PDCs and everything that you're going to have to get to in here. Now, in addition, and I'll show you further in just a second, right here, there's a bracket up here behind the fender liner. There's 2 big long screws here and here that are what hold this corner together. They drive this, your bumper into the quarter panel. But the first thing we want to do is undo these. So go ahead and take those 3 out. We might have to take a few more out as we go. I'll show you those if need be. But go ahead and take those out, and then we're going to pull the liner back so we can get to the sensors. Okay, all right, so now that I have those 3 out, 1, 2, 3, you can peel the fender liner back. We're going to do this for one hand for right now. But you can see there's 1 plug there and 1 plug there. You're going to want to reach in, pull the little locking tabs, and walk both of those plugs off. Now, depending on the spec of your car, you might have, 360-degree cameras. If so, you'll have another plug right here on where the camera is. But then, as you look up, it's a little hard to see right now, but you should see the bottom of a bolt right there. Not the silver one, the black one right there. There's 2 of them. There's one on this side, there's one on the other side. They should be 8mm, so you use a wrench and a long extension. That's what cinches your bumper cover into the quarter panel. So once you have all of those unplugged, get all of those sensors and your PDCs and all the rest unplugged, anything else that you have there, go ahead and pull those 2 long 8mm bolts. Now, you're going to want to do this for both sides. So you're going to want to turn the wheels one way and then the other. I'm going to not show the other side because it's the same process. Once that's done, there's a whole series of screws across the And I'll show you what those look like in just a second. But go ahead and get your wheel wells all taken care of on both sides, and then we'll do the bottom. As you can see, I'm just going to use these ones across the nose. You can see these 10mm screws that go in all the way across the nose, all the way down. They're all the ones in the paint, basically, because that's what where your bumper cover comes down. So go ahead and go along, take all of those out. Let me roll down here a little bit. There's a couple of these expanding rivets here and here that you're likely going to end up having to take out here, here, and here. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, depending on the setup. I'll end up taking them out. You just use a plastic trim tool to pull the center pin, then they'll come out. But go ahead and take that whole series out. So once all of those are out across the entire nose, basically your bumper cover is loose with the exception of the screws across the top. And that's the point where we're going to want to start being careful when we take this off. But take these out first, and then we'll take the ones across the top off, and we'll take our front bumper cover off. Okay, y'all, so now that you've taken all of those screws off across the bottom, all of those 10mm, and like I said, there are those 3 expanding rivets I pointed out on each corner. Make sure to get those as well. So there's a whole series of Torx screws right here across the top. I've already taken a number of them out, just so you can see what it looks like when they're out. I've left the 2 corners in. In addition, if you notice, your front bumper cover slides underneath these little clips. So even when you pull these last screws, it's not like your front bumper cover just falls off at that point, because it's kind of fit into place. If you have an extra set of hands, it isn't a bad idea. You can do this with one person. If it's just you, you're going to want to get a good grip on it and kind of pull evenly to pull your bumper cover away. If you do have an extra set of hands, I would recommend it, because then you can take it from each side, grip in the middle, grip at the wheel well. Now, the one thing about the wheel well is there's a couple of little clips here in each corner that are still half holding this into place. The screws did the majority of the work, but you're going to have to separate these corners away, these edges of the bumper covers kind of away from those clips, because it will pop as it comes away, just like that, okay? So go ahead and pop free both corners, and then gently pull the whole thing away from the front of the car. As you do so, do it very slowly, do it very carefully, make sure you didn't miss any cabling. You shouldn't have if you pulled all the cables on both sides, but just be really careful at this phase. Last thing you want to do is also have it tip forward and fall onto its face. So pull very gently, find a safe place to put this down, because everything we need to get to replace this is on the back side, which is why we have to take this off. So I'm going to take it over, put it in a safe padded spot, so we can do all the work on the back, and then we'll reinstall it. Okay, so go ahead and start to fit this and take it off. All right, so as you can see, the bumper cover is now down on its face. Make sure to put it someplace safe and padded. You don't want to scrape up the nose while you do this. That would be a huge drag. Now, the existing piece, if you could tell from the new piece, if you looked at it, is all one solid contiguous piece all the way around. And there are clips all the way around the outside. Now, one of the very first things that I would do is I'd go ahead and pull your PDC sensors here from the 2 center positions, plus the post right here in the middle. There's a whole series of these little gator clips that go along, that hang on to the plastic right here. So you're going to want to free this cabling. You don't have to pull it completely free, just get it loose so you can get the grill out. There are little fingers on either side of the PDCs, and I strongly recommend you be very careful when you pull these. Now, since you're pulling this from the original, in theory, if you broke one of these clips, it's not the end of the world because you're replacing this. But you want to be very careful as you do this. The clips are really, really big, so you're going to be surprised on the amount of pressure you need to apply to get these out. Just slowly, gently work at them, because the last thing you want to do is break one of your PDC sensors as you pull it out. So pull both PDCs, the center post, and all the clips along the outside. Now I'll grab my camera and give you a little bit closer look, but the entire grill is held in force fit by all these little clips. So I will usually use a right angle pick tool. I'll reach in, I'll pull back the little finger on the clip and start to, pull the frame away from the bumper cover. It's just patience. Some small flat bladed screwdrivers will help. Pick tools will help to get that whole thing pried away. So let me get that started. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. All right, so let me zoom in here. There's kind of a couple of different ways of coming at this. Now you can use pick tools. I like using small flat bladed screwdrivers, and there's 2 different tabs here. If you look very closely, there's the black plastic tab, which is pressing on the painted colored tab, which presses it into the grill itself. So they kind of reinforce each other. I've had times where if I can separate the back tab because I'm using this little screwdriver here to do so. If you can separate the back tab, then the front tab will slip free because the back tab is pushing it forward so much. Sometimes that doesn't work, and so on those times I'll get between the colored tab, right? So in this case, the paint colored, the blue tab, and the front edge of the grill. When you do that, and I've used a whole series of screwdrivers around this lead edge, it'll then start to separate and pop free. Okay, so all you need to do is just walk all the way around the whole thing. So all the ones around this edge are now free. Walk around the inside edge. Don't pull up too hard or you'll crack it in the middle. And then repeat it on the other side, and then the entire piece will come out. Okay, so go ahead and get the entire grill out, and we'll start to reinstall the new one. All right, y'all, so once you work this whole thing off, and it really is a combination of kind of those front big tabs and those back tabs that hang on to them. So it's really kind of dual pressure in both directions. But it's just a matter of just working your way around, freeing the whole thing out, and then you can pop the entire piece out. As you can tell, all the cabling for your PDCs are still in place, and this is going to be a matter of taking the new piece and fitting it right back into the same location, installing the PDCs and all the rest. So as you do this, just be careful. You don't want to scrape any of it, so you can hang up the cable. And I'm going to do this with both hands here in just a second. But you want to fit this back into place exactly where the other one was. All the tabs will fit through in the exact same locations. Just press it down in securely. Then you can reinstall your PDCs because the clips are right there really nicely. You've got your center post for your PDC cable. Now, if you remember correctly, you had all those little gator clips for that ridge across the middle. Those aren't there anymore, so there's nothing to clip it onto. But that's okay because the center post will be there, your PDC sensors will be there. Okay, so go ahead and reinstall your new carbon fiber, and then we're real close to reinstalling it back on the car. All right, so make sure that you have your PDCs plugged back in the correct orientation and the little locking tabs are locked down because, you know, if your PDCs are not sitting straight, they're not going to work as accurately as they should. Now, the one thing, like I mentioned, you don't have these little gator clips, you don't have the ridge for those to get on. I generally recommend in this layout where you don't have some place to clip them on, you definitely don't want to put them up here because you'd see them, plus they'd score up the carbon fiber. Plus, they're gonna knock, right, as this moves. So I usually just clip these off. I just take a pair of snips and I cut the little band in here. It's like a zip tie band, and I cut those off because then they don't bang around. And the wire harness itself will be fine. You just don't want this banging around and potentially either making noise or scoring up the back of the carbon fiber. Okay, so go ahead and get that all done, and then we're going to walk it over and put it back on the car. So let's give this one last look before we rehang the bumper cover. Make sure that all your tabs are locked through, and this is one of the things I really love about the Kies Motorsports version. It's really well designed. All the carbon fiber locks into place. You don't have to use 3M tape or screws or zip ties or whatever it happens to be. Fits perfectly all the way around. Now, when you walk this back, it's good if you have a second set of hands, and I find that I hang these corner screws first. So hang that top lip. So remember that this is the part we took off last. Should be the part you hang first. And I usually will put the two corners in so it won't fall off. And then you can kind of swing the rest of it down and into place, fit it out down all along the bottom. So I will hang the top first, those two top screws. I usually will set the rest once I've got the corners in just loosely, so again, it won't fall off. Then you can swing the bumper down, work your way all the way across the bottom, come back across, plug all your sensors in, and then you can put the corner screws in. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So take it back to the car, rehang it, and then we're gonna walk through putting all the screws in reverse order. All right, so now that you've carefully rehung the bumper cover, like I said, I've got the screws along the top. One of the nice things about the fact that this is plastic is that you can see the indentations where the screws were before, the screws and washers, so you can set it right back in the same place. Same thing with these little clips. Make sure that the bumper cover goes under these little clips all the way across, and you can actually see the scrape marks where these clips have been. So you can line this back up, and so you can get your fitment in place pretty good just straight out of the gate. Now, one of the things I will usually do is I'll come back and I will set the corners. Now remember, you have those big long screws, so you're going to want to pull this up and set it into the corner. There are holes and guides here on both pieces. So when you pull this up into place, you're going to see it snap up and around. Now you want to make sure that it fits in the track underneath the headlight. Now right now you can tell it's underneath it just a little bit. So you want to pull this up, get it guided up into the headlight track, and then you can put these screws in. Because I will normally do the top edge, I will do these corners so then it's sitting nice and straight and flush, and then you get underneath and you do that whole row across the bottom. Okay, so get your corners done and then do the track underneath. All right, y'all, let's catch up to what we're doing. As you can tell, I've got pretty much everything screwed back together here. This is just a reverse of what you did before. Now, don't forget, whatever you unplugged on either side, make sure to plug them back in before you bolt the wheel well back up. You tie that back up. You put those 10 millimeters back in. All the way across the bottom, you have those expanding rivets, 3 per side. All those 10 millimeters across the top. You've got your Torx bolts here on the top, which are still snug. I'm gonna tighten them down just a little bit more to be fully secure on those. So those are all set. Look all the way across the top, make sure all your lines are set in. Your line at the wheel well is good. All the way down between the fender, all the way down into the wheel well, and everything's good to go. So double check all of that, make sure you're set. Then go ahead and snug all these bolts down. We're gonna put that plate back on with those expanding rivets, and then just slot this gasket back into the groove, and you're all done. I know that sounds really simple, because it is. It's not all that hard, so go ahead and clean up, and you will be done. All right, this looks so good. I'm so excited. So this plate is back on. I've put the expanding rivets back in. You just put them in and push the pins back in. And if you only partially pull this gasket off, then you don't have to worry about it. And the fitment on either side works really well. So then you just take this and you fit it back down over that ridge, and that's all good to go. Man, I am so excited by this. This looks so good. What a great improvement. This is one of the things that with the G80s, I'm really not all that fond of, is the grille design, candidly. And this CSL style from Kies Motorsports looks fantastic. So all around the fitment of the bumper cover back on looks great. So go ahead and put your car on the ground, clean up, you're all done. All right, guys, go ahead and clean up and put your tools away. And you can tell this isn't a hard project. It's just going to take you a little while to walk through it, especially since you have to take the bumper cover off. But I love how this looks, and this is a really worthy upgrade for your G80 or G82. Thank you to Kies Motorsports for making such a fantastic product, because I've seen some really bad carbon fiber grills. These are really good, so make sure to check this out for your car. I really appreciate you watching, and please make sure to click like and subscribe, because it actually makes a huge difference to my channel, and I would really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.